Eric, your background, for some of the audience that don't know, your background is actually finance before you got into TV. If you don't mind, for some folks that don't know, maybe take a minute or two and give a little bit about your background in finance.
Well, sure. I was a professional baseball player. I blew my rotator cuff out and had nowhere to go, nothing to do. I ended up in New York on Wall Street and started on the New York Mercantile Exchange trading energy futures. And I spent 12 years there. I got to the board room. I became a board member, brought the exchange public, the first major financial, certainly exchange that went public on my push. And I spent 15 years total on Wall Street, and I've never left it. I continue to trade oil. I trade gold, silver, agricultural commodities, but I'm an active stock trader as well. And so I'm in and out of this. And tariffs, honestly, Patrick, I just don't get it. I'm an original MAGA. I'm an OG MAGA. Sorry, Chris. I know you're not going to love this, but one of the original Trump supporters, one of the original Steve Bannon supporters, because back in the day when Bannon and Andrew Breitbart were developing America First, I followed them, and they were great. And they brought President Trump to the presidency the first time. So the MAGA, original MAGA support, I do not get this idea of applying tariffs on the whole world. We are the biggest consumer on the planet. We have a lot of ways of exerting pressure on China to lower their tariffs and others, Brazil. One of them would be use our massive oil infrastructure. I mean, Trump loves to drill oil. If we drilled a ton more oil, if we put liquefied natural gas, which we can now do to the point where we satisfy all of our domestic demand, the excess demand, we could offer to China and say, look, you want to make a deal, lower your tariffs, we will sell you LNG at market price without a tariff. You want to keep your tariffs, we'll jack it up. China needs the oil. They need that. They're desperately seeking oil. That's why they have the partnership with Russia. Point is, I've done this for a really, really long time. It's the one area I just can't get behind. Free marketeer here, and anytime government gets involved in anything in the markets, they pretty much screw it up. Okay,
so let's start off with the tariff topic. I like that. So Trump exempts phones, computers, and chips from new tariffs. Rob, if you want to pull up the clip on that. Here's President Trump talking about what they're doing with phones, computers, and chips. Go for it.
Short-lived product exemptions. Which specific products are you considering, and how long is short-lived? Weeks, months?
I'm looking at something to help some of the car companies where they're switching to parts that were made in Canada, Mexico, and other places, and they need a little bit of time because they're going to make them here, but they need a little bit of time. So I'm talking about things like that.
What about any Apple products, other cell phones?
Look, I'm a very flexible person. I don't change my mind, but I'm flexible. And you have to be. You just can't have a wall and you'll only go. No, sometimes you have to go around it, under it, or above it. There'll be maybe things coming up. I speak to Tim Cook. I helped Tim Cook recently, and that whole business. I don't want to hurt anybody, but the end result is we're going to get to the position of greatness for our country. We're the greatest economic power in the world if we're smart. If we're not smart, we're going to hurt our country very badly.
So the latest number, Rob, if you can verify this, I think it's U.S. 145% tariff on China. China's 125% tariff on U.S., okay? It doesn't look like it's slowing down. Xi just went to Vietnam. Vietnam was the first person that we said we're going to lift the tariff. So he's going to his neighbors to say, hey, don't forget we have a great relationship together. The whole concept of we'll build this stuff here, we'll say made in China, but we'll put made in Vietnam. We're still going to keep that agreement. Let's not forget some of the stuff that we have going on here. But you're not liking the position they're taking with tariffs. Why is that?
Because, again, government getting involved in anything, they screw everything up. Price controls screw up supply, demand. You just let supply and demand find the right home. Originally, they launched it as we're going to put an equivocal tariff on any certain country, China, Brazil, Germany, whatever you're charging us, we're going to do the same. Reciprocal.
Yeah.
Problem is they didn't do that, Patch. What they did was they took a trade imbalance with a country, for example, China, $130 billion trade imbalance. That's what they sell us more than we sell them. And they divided that number by the total export China into America, which is fine, but it's an equation. It has nothing to do with their tariff structure at all. It's a trade imbalance number. And they came up like, I think, 64%, and they said, oh, we're going to do 32. They did that with every single country in the world. Had nothing to do with the actual tariffs. So they sold it as, we're going to raise our tariffs reciprocally, and when you lower country A, B, or C, we will lower with you, which is great. That's fine. You want to play that game? Wonderful. Then it became something different. Then it became, we're doing this to everyone, and now we have 15 countries who want to negotiate. Now we have 150 countries that want to negotiate. And it became more about the world leaders coming to the Trump administration and begging for some relief, which isn't the real nature of it. You want to play the tariff game, play it where the purpose is to lower tariffs completely, both directions. And I think they lost that script for a while. They're trying to get it back now. And then this whole idea of choosing certain industries to exempt from tariffs, not necessarily countries, but industries, chips, cell phones, computers. I just don't like, I'm a free market person, Patrick. The free market is what made this country number one, the greatest country on the planet, bar none, because we had the most free business environment markets, and the tariff disrupts that whole apple cart.
Tom, your thoughts on this?
Well, Trump said, I want to leverage things to get the world to come to the table. And so, okay, we're using tariffs, and I'm on board with that. But then the calculation of how you get them to the world, I thought that they kind of lost the headline there, because it's like, wait a minute, to your point, how are you
the 32?
Yeah, how are you calculating to get them to the table? You want to get them to the table and say, hey, look, you got two things here. One of them is tariffs, and you're not really bad on tariffs, Eric, but you know what? I know you're cheating, and I know you got intellectual property things going on, and I know you've got some relabeling on country of origin, and that's annoying. So let's fix that. So maybe the tariff gets them to the table, maybe leverage gets them to the table, so you can talk about all these other things. The biggest one to deal with is China. The biggest one to deal with.
But Tom, I don't mean to interrupt, but they didn't use a tariff and add on difficulty getting into your market or back and forth. They didn't use that. They literally took the trade imbalance of country A, B, or C, and they divided it by the exports
I
into
agree.
America.
That's why I was confused by the calculation, but I understood
which is a
the purpose.
non-formula. It is a formula that does not exist.
So it's a formula, but they didn't.
Analysis.
It's not what they sold us.
Right.
It's not what they said. It was going to be a tariff. We'll raise to you. Oh, and they said we're going to be lenient and only do half.
Right.
But the number they are using as the tariff that we're being charged had nothing to do with the tariff. And again, I'm putting this on Howard Lutnick, because this is Howard Lutnick's baby here, and I've known that guy for 30 years. I wouldn't trust him to park my car over there. Lutnick's the problem.
Only the best.
Tell me why. Tell me
Only
why.
the best.
You want me to tell you why?
Yeah.
Trump brings in only the best, though.
What?
Only the best.
Again, so I was on with O'Reilly, and he said, "Oh, Bolling, you're a MAGA sycophant. He can do no wrong. Is there anyone in this administration I think you made a mistake with Lutnick. I believe you do. Chris, you and I were in New York when the World Trade Center came down, right?
Oh boy.
Howard Lutnick was CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. Howard wasn't at the World Trade Center the day it came down, because he was taking his kid to school.
Right.
His brother dies, 115 of his employees die. The families of his employees didn't have money. They didn't have health care. They had to sue Howard Lutnick to get health care. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, this is out there.
It's a bad history.
But it's 25 years ago, and people are like, oh, Howard Lutnick. They don't remember. Since then, my first experience with Howard Lutnick, because I was trading oil on the New York Mercantile Exchange. I was on the board. We were huge. We were growing. We were the premier oil trading platform in the world. For every single barrel of oil, price was discovered on the New York Merc, and it still is. I was a board member there. Howard calls from Cantor before the World Trade Center comes down. He says, I'm going to put you guys out of business. I'm developing an oil contract that is going to bury the New York Mercantile Exchange. So I went over there with a couple of other board members to have a nice conversation with him to see if there's a way we could all work together to discover prices for oil. The more price discovery, the more people involved, the better. He just literally looked at us and I'm developed a contract putting you guys out of business. Make a long story short, the exchange is still here. It's a $150 billion entity, and Howard's making tariff.
Why do you think he is, though? Why do you think he is? So if for everybody they have a sword to die on, right? If we're talking about specific to tariffs, why do you think that's Lutnick's sword to die on?
Well, I think it's he sold it as his expertise. I mean, he came in as the commerce secretary and he had an idea. And Trump liked the idea. But the problem is that the idea of raising your own tariffs to reduce global tariffs on incoming imports, their exports, our imports, is a nice idea. It's maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. Maybe it throws people, the world, into a global recession. I'm not sure. But he sold it, and Trump kind of liked the idea, and then it got away. It became something different. I think it'll get back to what the original was.
So by the way, I want to make sure we're fair here. Rob, can you pull up what happened with Lutnik? Because I don't know the whole
look,
story.
They got a chunk of money as a settlement, right? As a lot of the people who were affected did. The initial criticism was that Lutnik had taken a lot of the money, and it looked like it was going to go his way, not the family's way. Over time, he did more and more for the families. They got insurance, they got settlements.
Correct.
But it was a bad look early on. Is this about him committing a crime? No. Is it about him screwing them?
I'm not
period?
suggesting
no.
he
I want
committed
to make sure, so because
But there
I'm
was
reading this
bad
here.
blood early on.
He promised to give 25% of Cantor's future profits to the families, the 658 employees who died. And over the years, he gave more than $180 million distributed to those families. He's also created a relief fund offering health care and financial support to those left behind. And Fitzgerald was one of the few companies who stayed in business after losing 2/3 of his staff. So he ended up making it right afterwards with some of the stuff. So I want to make sure we put that.
It depends who you ask, but
I get that.
It wound up better than it started, put it that way.
Sure.
But Eric is not wrong to say that the impression of him was very negative.
Fair enough. I wasn't there. I'm not in the know of exactly what happened. If somebody is more interested in it, they can look into it and respond to it here. But let's go to tariff. So, Eric, Chris, it seems, are you guys both on the same page on the tariff position with what he's taking? Would you say you're relatively on the same page?
I'll add one piece,
please.
Okay, which is first, this is as nice an assessment as Trump is going to get of this, right? If this had been Biden who had done this, everybody's head would be on fire in this room right now. The ambition is a good ambition. The mistake the left is making is hating the ambition. Helping the American worker, having new economy jobs here that pay more, bringing things back that we need to make here so that people can't hold us hostage like happened in the beginning of the pandemic when we didn't have any of the PPE that we needed. I think that's all good, and I think it's wrong to criticize it just because Trump is doing it. That's why I talk about the president and the administration a lot. I try to keep Trump's name out of it so people on the left can keep their heads straight about the idea. So I respect the ambition. You know the expression, we all know it. Failing to plan is planning to fail. And what they're doing here is a ready, shoot, aim situation. That's why he has to keep backing off. I have a little bit of a suspicion about why he's helping Cook. Cook gave him a ton of money. Why he's helping the car companies that they gave him a ton of money. I don't think he should play favorites. How he wants to do this, Eric is right to question. And you're hearing it. It's not unusual criticism. But the ambition is a good one. I'm fine with what he wants to do. The question is this the way to get it done? It's very hard to find anybody who doesn't work for him who says yes.
Can we have a friendly banter here on this topic? Let's just kind of go through some of the ideas here. So what is the alternative? If they don't do it this way and we just sit there and you're like, look, just use the oil reserves. We have plenty of oil. We're going to be okay. Use that as the method of getting back, and China needs our oil, but don't take this approach. Fair. If we go with that approach, you're assuming a similar type of a leader is going to get elected after him. What if he's not? What if it's going to be a different kind of a president that takes a different approach, that doesn't believe in drill, baby, drill? So, okay, then let's go with tariffs. If we keep it the way it is, from 1971, where we kind of opened it up and they started doing business, to 2001, when World Trade Organization, they joined it and they kind of started doing more business. How much has China grown compared to us? What happened to us? How many of jobs did we give away? It almost sounds like, Eric, what you're saying is similar to what Yellen is saying. Yellen said bringing manufacturing back is a pipe dream. I don't understand the rationale for tariffs. You sound like Janet, if that's your position, and you can disagree with it. Rob, if you want to play this clip. This is Janet Yellen, former Treasury Secretary. Go ahead, Rob.
Perhaps it's to bring back American manufacturing, but I really think that's a pipe dream and not something that is likely to be accomplished. And we could even raise questions about whether or not, in a broad-based way, that's a desirable goal.
Okay, so this is traditional way of thinking establishment, saying this is a pipe dream. What are your thoughts on that?
I think Janet Yellen should never have been Treasury Secretary. I think she's ridiculous. She's the one who said inflation was transitory when it was clearly not transitory for the better part of 4 years of Joe Biden's presidency. It was directly tied to their policy. I just happen to also question whether or not raising tariffs will actually create American jobs, and what kind of American jobs are we going to create here if we do this? And we're going to clearly product prices are going to go up if all things stay the same, tariffs stay high with China and others, product prices will go up globally. Hopefully there's enough demand to support the higher price. Maybe there is. I believe there's a lot of demand in the U.S. economy right now, but you have to worry about China. China right now is on that precipice of, is there enough demand to keep them paying for their growth? I'm not sure. So that's the risk. And the payoff would be, Patrick, is Tim Cook says, I'll give $500 billion. We're going to build $500 billion worth of manufacturing in America. Lutnick said, okay, we're going to have Americans screwing those little screws in iPhones. No, that's not how it happens. They come back, and if they do spend money to build a manufacturing plant here, which would be great, economic activity is good, they'll all be robotics. Every single iPhone will be built with robotics. The only reason why it's not happening now is because it's too expensive to build a new manufacturing plant with the robotics. But if you're going to make it expensive to import, then you'll do it here, and there won't be more Americans working in manufacturing. There'll be more manufacturing, but not more Americans manufacturing products and stuff. Everything's going robotic.
But that's going to happen no matter what. I mean,
Correct.
that's not. It's like saying, hey, when back in the days, in the 1900s, 41% of people worked in farms, and then all of a sudden, a tractor and fertilizer eliminated those jobs, and they're like, what the hell do I do? And everybody was afraid, but we adjusted. We pivoted to a different place.
And
So-
that's the key.
Yeah.
The key is the adjustment. That's why Trump shouldn't liken this to the Gilded Age. Okay, I'm sure we all saw what was in the Woodward book where Gary Cohn was trying to explain to the then president in the first term, we don't want to go back to the Gilded Age. Americans don't want that kind of job. We can do better than that. And Trump, for whatever reason, was fixated on that being America's best time, which is hard to justify economically. You are right to characterize what Lutnick said the way you are because his quote was taken out of context. He gave a nod that we're not going to be turning screws. Those will be robotic jobs. But why? China underwrites the cost of those factories in their country. So you say you want to start one. We come in with Valuetainment. We want to do it as a consortium. China underwrites it. That's what the United States has to do. So it's not just starting with tariffs. It's not going to get you where you want to be. The ambition is fine. But what I don't like is China is outplaying us right now in this moment. They see an opportunity. We overreached. We pissed everybody off. Everybody wants to meet with China all of a sudden, which did not happen before.
Who's everybody?
Japan, South Korea, the EU. They're taking meetings. Vietnam didn't just talk to Xi. They signed over a dozen new trade deals in that meeting. So China isn't reciprocal tariffing us. What are they doing? Restricting, meaning what? They're not going to punish their consumers to the extent that they have a robust base there. They're just not allowing us access to these things. They are being very savvy.
They need us, though.
They definitely need us.
They can play with Vietnam and whomever else they want to play with all they want.
But what are we, maybe net 20% of their business? 20%? We're 14% of exports, maybe 16%?
Probably higher than that number and probably higher on a profitability basis, too, because not only do we don't just buy the little, the Sharpies, we buy iPhones and expensive, so there's a lot more profit margin in the stuff we buy. They can't live without. They can't, Chris. They're on a path to not be able to actually go into more than a recession, maybe even a depression. They can't keep up. I mean, they've grown. They had massive growth. Their growth is almost stopped.
But they have
completely.
Structural advantages that Trump doesn't have to worry
yeah,
about.
in labor.
The people don't matter.
In labor. Yeah.
Politicians don't matter.
Labor costs.
The currency doesn't matter. They have control over everything.
But let me ask you a question, though. Okay, everything you're saying there, this is kind of how I process it. The problem with the U.S. politics, here's a problem that I see, is the leverage he has is what? When is his next election?
She?
Yeah.
She doesn't-
Never.
That's
she's
the
in.
point.
Yeah.
So the problem we have with America is what? When is our next election?
Really, like in 16 months.
Yeah, midterms.
Yeah,
Okay, so
you know.
what happens if there's a bloodbath and then, hey, look what's going on? So then
That's
they
right.
got to pivot and, oh my God. So the challenge I have is the following. If we don't do something now, and the next president doesn't, and the next everybody keeps, what's the word?
Kicking the can down the road.
Hey, you know, let's just get. And then eventually, all of a sudden, you're going to wake up one day and they're going to be like, hey, guess what? We got you. Now we have you. So because we don't want to deal with a little bit of pain today, we're like,
How'd they have us? How do they have us? And the portrayal is that because we have such a massive trade imbalance, we're at some sort
Pull
of
up numbers, Rob.
They're there. I
Pull
agree
up
with
numbers.
You.
Pull
We
up
have
numbers.
$1 trillion trade.
But tariffs
you asked
aren't
me
the
to-
reason for the
Pull
imbalance.
up the numbers. Where was China? Where did China rank in GDP in 1971? Go in 1971, where was China? Okay. So where do they have us? China was ranked what? Okay,
Nowhere.
China's global rank is number 8th. Again, it was over 2 points in 1970, suggesting a similar rank in 71. Okay. Then go to where they were in 2001, pre-WTO. Okay. And WTO, they were ranked what?
Third. They jumped up.
Okay, go to 2000 instead of 2001. Go to 2000. 2000, they're still third?
Sixth.
Fourth. Sixth. So they go from sixth. So, boom. Top 10, sixth. WTO, third. Where are they today? Go to where they are today. Second. Okay, so what are the projection of where they're going to be by 2030?
First.
2035, 2040. So we're supposed to sit here and just kind of cave and say a new regime's in town?
It's not about the what, it's about the how. The argument you're having is about, it's not that we got to do something about China, we have to figure out how to protect ourselves and advance ourselves. I think people can get on the same page with that, or they should. It's the how. The trade deficit is not because of tariffs. In fact, when they got into the WTO, what did they have to do to get into it? Lower their tariffs. So as the trade deficit was growing, they were actually lowering tariffs. So the point is, and what pisses off people like Eric who understand tariffs, is it's not the right mechanism.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that, Chris. Let me put it to you how I look at it. So you said the way they could get in WTO was what? To lower their tariffs.
They lowered their tariffs when they got in.
So let me ask you a
and
question.
for years after that.
So let me ask you a question. How much has China shown a track record of following rules and guidelines and things that ask
Zero.
and agreements
They
to
cheat.
do?
They steal our stuff.
Oh.
They may be helping right now in the Ukraine war by giving Russia
Right.
manpower.
I saw soldiers.
So let me get this straight. They have a track record
Bad.
of agreeing on certain terms and not following through on
Yes.
the terms. And you want us to take the negotiation seriously and try to play nice with these guys? It's not like you're dealing with somebody. When you deal with somebody, you do business, you'll have a phone call. You guys been in the entertainment business for a while. You know who to call, that whatever they say, it's going to get done. And I guarantee you, both of you guys have a name that no matter what they say, you better verify it 17 times because you know nothing that person ever said was real.
I just don't know that tariffs is the right punch to throw to
but
knock them
what's
out.
the alternative, though? What's the alternative?
That's the discussion to have.
No,
Is how
but-
to-
So I can give you an alternative.
Let's hear
Please.
it.
Open up our markets. Trump loves to drill for oil. If we became a global major exporter of oil, I mean,
That's a term, though. You have it's only a
but
period.
so China goes to number one, Patrick. Let's say they take over the United States in 2, 3, 5 years, whatever.
Yeah.
Do it by per capita now. They have 5 times our population.
but they also don't care about how
care
broke
about
they
that.
are.
But no, but they
don't
went
care about their
from
people.
from a third world country to a developed
They're not wired like
nation.
you. They're not wired like us.
My point is, we get hung up. Are we first or second? Are we the biggest
No, my
military or the
concern-
second biggest
yeah.
military? My point is, we're the most powerful country. It doesn't matter if China has a bigger GDP than the United States. We'll still be a heck of a lot more powerful than they will. They would love to have what we have.
Based on what, though? Based on what?
Our buying power. We have a consumer that is the strongest consumer on the planet. Our economy is the strongest
And
economy
let me ask
on
you a
the
question.
planet.
Let me ask you a question. Let me
Per
ask you-
capita GDP.
If this continues, who's a slave to who?
They can't. We can never be a slave to them. We buy their shit. We sell them stuff. We pay them. They can't.
What
stop.
happened-
And they have a lot of our debt. If they put us into a depression, and we default on the trillions of dollars of our debt that they hold, they don't want to do that either.
Yeah, but okay? So here's the more I'm listening to what we're saying, the more I'm processing it as let's find a way to make it good now.
Yes.
Okay. it's kind of like.
Although I don't believe anybody is going to run away from something that's working. You know, the Democrats criticized Trump's tariffs on China in the first term. Biden left them in. People don't run away from success.
No, what I'm saying to you is if we have a chance to have this tough conversation now, I have a feeling if we don't do it now, this may be the last chance ever to have it. And why? Let me explain why. Here's what I mean by why. When's the last time we had a guy like Trump as a president?
Never.
4 years ago.
Exactly. Meaning himself. That's what he's saying. So when's the last? Was Reagan like a Trump?
No.
Was Reagan more willing? If you read the Jim Baker book, you know, and you read about Reagan was actually willing to compromise, right?
Yes.
So Reagan had a different approach that he would still work with the establishment a little bit and kind of, you know, be able to make that stuff work. To me, if there is a wild card in this equation of a guy that can, like, I was talking to a couple NBA guys the other day with Scottie Pippen. And we're talking about a guy named Zion Williamson, okay, who's
fat is what Zion is.
So, exactly. But you know what I said? I said, let me ask you a question. Earlier, when I asked him about the whole challenge with Miami, he says, everybody leaves Miami. Why is that? He says, because of Pat Riley. Really, why? Because Pat is known for that. He has a reputation. He drives people too hard. I said, great. 30 minutes later, I say, let me ask you a question. Zion Williamson, if there's a coach or somebody in the NBA that could change him, who would it be? He said, Pat Riley. I said, wait a minute, you can't say this. He says, I can. I said, what are you doing here? But the point is what? It takes an effing Pat Riley to change certain things. And I think the chances of getting another Trump in 4, 8, 12, 6, I don't know if we're going to see
but
it.
I don't know that you need it. There's a plus minus on how he is. Aggression is good. Trump is aggressive. He is assertive. He sees everything as a nail and he's a hammer. Okay. But it's still about how good the strategy is and what the mechanism is for change.
Too early to tell.
Our biggest advantage over China is our alliances, okay? And that's why people were worried about the soft power. That's why people were worried about how you talk to your allies. When you see the EU saying we're going to take, not just Spain, right? We're going to take meetings with China, that's a middle finger to us. And the reason they're giving a middle finger to us because they want to give it to Trump because of how he talks about them. Now, you can say, yeah, but he's strong. You need your friends to beat China, not just because of the number of human beings, but because of the concentration of power. That's the criticism, is the way you're going about this is not going to get it done, but what you want to get done is the right thing to go after.
Tom, do you have final thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know, Chris, about that point on the EU. I mean, the EU paraded Ursula von der Leyen, who's president of the EU Commission, the Economic Commission, right? And they paraded her out for the last week, and she said, well, EU likes a good deal, would like a good deal. Number one. Number two, she was saying things about, hey, we want to come negotiate this. We believe more in moderation. Because they send her out with the moderation message so that they can take these populist messages, except Italy, forward to their media about, oh, you know, we're not going to be bullied by Trump. We're not going to be like this and everything. Meanwhile, they're coming out being very open about it. And meanwhile,
being open about what? I don't understand your point.
No, she's talking about we want to come negotiate this, and this.
Right.
Right. And so they send out Ursula von der Leyen to make those statements. Meanwhile, you know, Macron says, oh, I don't know about this. This guy is such a bully. You see the difference?
Yeah, but I'm saying
So
they say they're going to
economically,
meet with China. They shouldn't be saying that. They are our friend, not China's friend.
Well, you
and
know,
what's
they've
happening right now is a realignment because people are pissed at Trump. And that's not necessarily good.
Look deeper into it, right? Huge. Auto industry is big in Europe, okay?
Yes.
So what's happening? Why is Renault Nissan like going to EU Commission saying we need to investigate what's going on in Hungary with BYD? They're building a factory there. They're going to ship the cars over here. They're subsidizing it, and they're going to screw all of us on the equivalent of, you know, cost dumping because they're going to subsidize the whole thing. And so I don't see a lot of love there for all of what's going on in the auto industry in Europe. And that's what one of the things Ursula von der Leyen was talking about. And I'm no fan of her. But my point was I'm sitting there watching her versus watching prime ministers and things and presidents and saying, you know, as much as they're pissed at Trump, they're scared to death of what China is doing. And so they're not running over there with open arms. I was on record in the beginning, Chris. I said, look, these tariffs are going to be tactics, not taxes. And I said that many, many times, and people clicked on it and said, I think you're crazy. I don't think I'm crazy. I think that's what's happening now. But if you look at the tariff like a medication, you're saying that's the wrong medication to be giving the patient. Okay, you can certainly say that, but you got to do it. You still have to cure the patient now. And I believe these are tactics, not taxes. Do I think that the calculation was like a wrong way to do it and opened your flank ups to all kinds of criticism? Yes. But is it still the right thing to do to kind of, hey, this is Holy Week, to flip over the tables and say we're going to change this? Yes.
Maybe.
I think it's too early. Like you said, but by the way, guys, this isn't my wheelhouse. But just as an average American looking out, I think it's way too early. China, I don't care. Listen, we're at war with China. We're not shooting guns. We're not dropping bombs. We're 100% at war with them. And by the way, they've gotten away for the past 4 years of what? Flying spy balloons for what? Nobody gave a damn. They bought land by all of our military bases. Now I'm from Air Force Base, Nuke. Nobody's saying anything. You need something drastic. I think it's a little bit early. Let him cook. Let him do his thing. And then at what point, here's my question. At what point do we go, okay, didn't work, and we have to shift gears? At what point? Because we're saying 2 years.
No, I don't think it's 2 years. I think it's like, and by the way, if some people are saying as early as this summer, if the market by summer is choppy, this is not going to be pretty.
Right.
Some are saying midterms. Midterms, if
Too
it
late.
goes like this, I know it's too late.
You'll get wiped out.
Wiped out. So it could be summer is the latest. Some, but again, this is the part about how things work in negotiation. If you read Trump's book of Art of the Deal, the amount of times he was willing to go past the level of pain that the average negotiator couldn't handle, that's a skill set. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's going to practice that here, because in that sense, the pain is you.
Us.
Him, Trump, because it's your deal. Mm. But in this sense, the pain is who? The people. Yeah. So I don't know how he's going to manage that pain, because maybe he can handle pain for himself and his employees, but maybe the pain when he sees around his people, what they're going to be saying, maybe it's going to be different.
I don't think anyone saw a $10 trillion meltdown in the equity markets.
Right.
I mean, the day before they announced, we knew the announcement was coming on April 2nd. We knew it was coming. April 1st, the market was up, flat top a little bit. A 10 trillion... 1,600 on a Friday, 2,600 on the Monday, 1,500 the next day, up at that. When that happened, Trump's smart. He said, wait a minute, maybe this isn't the right. We thought it sounded great, and I agree with you that it should have been, let's use this to lower all tariffs, but they didn't realize how much the market anticipated the downdraft.
But why do your guys feel that way in the markets? Okay, like I've done a really weird thing on my show since this happened.
Because
I have pros on the show.
A global recession.
Yeah,
that's why.
So guys who are like you guys, I'm having them come on my show now, not polished TV people to talk economics. These are guys, they're real institutional traders, they're real economics working as analysts for big places. And they're saying, look, they needed to message this first. You had to tell us what your plan was, why you were doing it this way, and you had to hold to it, because we're afraid with Trump of uncertainty, or what we call chaos in the punditry business. And they didn't do that, and I think they didn't do it because he didn't have a plan. He had what Tom is talking about, which is a basic feel and a tactic to get it in. And now let's see what happens. And the markets don't like that. And the problem is he's not she. He can't look at the people who don't like what he's doing and saying, but you're going to stay quiet because I'll kill you. Trump can't do that.
No,
he's got to be responsive to the criticism. And the problem is when he's responsive to the criticism, it makes it even worse, because now it's feeding the sense of uncertainty. Well, what's he going to change next? Well, which is this going to happen? Are these going to happen or not? How do I plan? Where do I put my money? That's what you're seeing happen.
A lot of you have been asking about the cigar lounge. You want to come to it. And we've been having back-to-back. This last Friday was the biggest event we ever had at the Cigar Lounge, which was fantastic. However, grand opening is this Thursday night. And this is what we're doing. Thursday, we're not doing a podcast in the morning. Thursday, we're doing a live podcast at our comedy club at Cigar Lounge, $59.90 live. Tickets are being sold. It'll be myself, Vinny, Tom, and Adam. Live audience. Come on down. Bar opens at 6. If you get there at 6 p.m., you buy tickets, no matter whether you buy the regular ticket, the general, the premium, or VIP. If you get the ticket and you're there early, we're going to give private tours of the Cigar Lounge and then bring you back in a room, and the podcast will start at 7 p.m. It's going to be it's going to be, if you've been to it before, it's a spectacle. It's incredible. The energy, the vibe, the announcements, different things that we do, and a lot of people networking together. But that's the QR code. The website, Rob, if we can give them the website so some of the folks on Spotify can go to it as well. I believe it's boardroom.
Cigarlounge.com.
Boardroomcigarlounge.com. Go a little bit lower so it gives the details. You'll get the tickets, so go lower, Rob, lower for the tickets. There's general premium VIP, 100, 250, 500. VIP, you get a chance to actually go afterwards to the Cigar Lounge, and we'll be with you guys. And we're doing it Thursday instead of Friday because Friday is Good Friday. So Thursday, we'll celebrate it together. Come on down, bring a friend, network, join the rest of us. We'll have a good time. If you've been to it before, typically the people that have been to it before, they know VIP sell out immediately. This year we have fewer VIPs because platinum members get first on those seats. So if you want to have a VIP seat, hurry up and place your order, and we'll see you guys Thursday night. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.